Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you on a hot, humid day here in Boston. A hot, humid day at the very end of September in Boston. It's just exactly what you expect. Uh, I got a bunch of packages. I don't know if there's going to be another ninja mail delivery. Usually there is. Usually I'll find, or my surly houseboy will find mail on the doorstep at 9 at night. If there is, we'll do it tomorrow. But in the meantime, we've got a bunch of packages here. Might find something really good, something squeal-worthy. Let's see what this first one is. Okay, this is from Soho Press, and this comes out as a hardcover in January, so I don't need to worry about it right away. And this is Bibliolepsy by Gina Apostol. Bibliolepsy. Isn't that what Jason Harrigan was diagnosed with? Let's see here. The People's Power Revolution and the impending fall of the Marcos regime isn't a distraction for extreme reader Primi Peregrino, college student and narrator of two-time Philippine National Book Award and PEN/Open Book Award winner Gina Apostol's delightful debut novel, published outside the Philippines for the first time. So this author, this is her debut novel, and this is the first time it's coming out outside the Philippines. Primi, partially in reaction to familial tragedies, has built a psychosexual philosophy out of reading, a condition she calls bibliolepsy. This isn't of the curl up with a good book brand of fetish, but rather the, quote, find and seduce the author kind of thing. How does Primi define bibliolepsy? And then the pub sheet here gives us Primi's definition. Bibliolepsy, a mawkishness derived from habitual aloneness and congenital desire. Manifestations, a quickening between the thighs and in the points of the breast, approaching the broad arching V when addressed by writers, books, biographies, dictionaries, Xerox machines, a symphony for typists and manuscripts. Etymologically related to Humbert Humbert's gross tendencies, though rarely possessing its callous tragedy, occasionally accompanied by a liking for rock and roll, the endless logo itch, desperately seeking, but it can't get no satisfaction. Biblioleptic attacks, usually followed by bouts of complete distaste for words. A revolution may be in full swing, and the fall of the Marcos regime in the Philippines seemed not just possible but inevitable, but Primi doesn't necessarily want to join the movement, as it looks like a distraction from reading. But when authorly types begin gathering to discuss the revolution's future, Primi realizes it's an opportunity to indulge her wildest biblioleptic fantasies. Okay. Great. Fantastic. Well, so this doesn't come out until January 4th, which I imagine is the first Tuesday of the year. So I don't have to worry about it for the time being. Is this a translated work? I think it is, right? This is written in English. Yeah, this is written in English. Okay, so a Bibliolepsy by Gina Apostol. Okay, that's a fine, funny start. Let's see if we can't keep that ball rolling. Let's see what this next one is. Ew, I touched an invoice. Oh my, that is gross. What have we got here? This is from Harvard University Press. This is by Thane Gustafsson. And this is Klimat, Russia in the Age of Climate Change. Don't have a sheet for it, but we'll read it from the dust jacket, just like you would in the bookstore. I don't have a sheet for it, so I don't know when this comes out, but I'm assuming it's an October release, right around the corner. Russia will be one of the countries most affected by climate change. No power is more economically dependent on the export of hydrocarbons. At the same time, 2/3 of Russia's territory lies in the Arctic North, where melting permafrost is already imposing growing demand. Climate change also brings droughts and floods to Russia's south, threatening the country's agricultural exports. Thane Gustafsson predicts that over the next 30 years, climate change will leave a dramatic imprint on Russia. The decline of fossil fuel use is already underway, and restrictions on hydrocarbons will only tighten, cutting fuel prices and slashing Russia's export revenues. Yet Russia has no substitutes for oil and gas revenues. Well, that it knows of. Right? huge tracts of land will suddenly be not only mineable but arable, and they belong to Russia. The country is unprepared for the worldwide transition to renewable energy as Russian leaders continue to invest the national wealth in oil and gas while dismissing the promise of post-carbon technologies. Well, they aren't alone in that, are they? Nor has the state made efforts to offset the direct damage that climate change will do inside the country. Optimists point to the new opportunities. Higher temperatures could increase agricultural yields, as of course they will. Russia will get millions of hectares of arable land. And the melting Arctic ice may open year-round shipping lanes in the far north. No, the melting ice and the Arctic ice will certainly do that. It will do that in the next couple of years. There'll be shipping lanes that haven't existed for 14 million years. And they're Russia's. So, not to paint a rosy picture, but there are going to be upsides short-term for Russian economy. And Russia could become a global nuclear energy supplier. But the eventual post-Putin generation of Russian leaders will nonetheless face enormous handicaps as their country finds itself weaker than at any time in the preceding century. Nonsense. Don't know this author. We'll find out who the author is, but that claim is nonsense. Any time in the previous century, nonsense. Russia in the age of Leonid Brezhnev was about as weak as a country can get, no matter, unless you believe the PR. But it's a historian's job to ignore the PR. I don't know where that claim comes from. It must be based on something, but we'll see. So who is the author? Thane Gustafsson is professor of government at Georgetown University. He's a widely recognized authority on Russian political economy and formerly a professor at Harvard University. And he's the author of many books. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I don't have a date on this thing, but utterly fascinating subject. The speculation about what Russia will do when the climate continues to go out of control, because let's face the facts here, it is going to happen, right? We're past the point of no return. We were a long time ago. We can mitigate, but the youngest people watching this video are going to grow up on an Earth that has no polar ice caps for most of the year. And that is the first time that any hominid species has ever experienced that. So there's no way to avoid that. There's no turning back the clock. So Russia is going to have to deal with all of these things, and this is fascinating, just fascinating. I will check the date, and if it is early October, I suspect it probably is October 5th, something like that. If that's true, then I'll read it right away. It fascinates me anyway. So let's move on to this next one. What is this next one? So we have a debut novel and a study of Russian climate change. I never know what I'm going to get on this channel. Never have any idea. So what is this next one? Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. This has got to be 2022. Yes, this is late January 2022. Oh, darn. I want to read this right away. This is by John Darnielle, who, oh God, when I was hip, I remembered the name of the hipster avocado band that he belongs to, the Mountain Goats or something like that. I don't remember. Maybe his author biography will tell us. But this is Devil House. This is his new novel. And he is, as the cover tells us, he's the author of Universal Harvester and Wolf in White Van, both of which I thought were absolutely fantastic novels. Just fantastic. Universal Harvester got a little bit of backtalk from some critics that ought to have known better. But it's all subjective anyway, right? Universal Harvester is terrific. Wolf in White Van is amazingly good. Just amazingly good. So talk about credit in the bank of Steve. It couldn't be any higher for this guy. But I don't get to experience this year. Let's see here. As you may know, Wolf in White Van, Darnielle's first full-length novel, was nominated for the National Book Award in 2014. Yes, indeed it was. And his second novel, Universal Harvester, earned him praise from Ishiguro, who called the book a moving, beautifully etched picture of America's lost and profoundly lonely, and as one of the brightest stars in American fiction, according to Michael Schaub, writing for the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times, I might point out here, has never published me. With his brand of Mountain Goats, yes, okay, so that is the name. With his band, the Mountain Goats, John Darnielle has been, I think when Wolf in White Van came out and I learned that, I went to YouTube to listen to Mountain Goats. And my verdict on them can be summed up in an easy sentence. All John Philip Sousa, all the time. Okay? Uh, he has been one of the most consistent and prolific storytellers of his generation. He's released 3 acclaimed full-length albums just since the beginning of COVID. And with Devil House, he takes another giant step forward as a novelist. Okay, but what is it? what is it, though? Gage Chandler is descended from kings. That's what his mother always told him. Years later, he is a true crime writer with one grisly success and a movie adaptation to his name, along with a series of subsequent less notable efforts. But now he's being offered a chance for a big break, to move into the house where a pair of briefly notorious murderers occurred, apparently the work of disaffected teens during the satanic panic of the 1980s. Chandler finds himself in Milpitas, California, a small town whose name rings a bell. His closest childhood friend lived there once upon a time. He begins his research with diligence and enthusiasm, but soon the story leads him into a puzzle he never expected, back into his own work and what it means, back to the very core of what he does and who he is. Fantastic. Well, I'm grieving a little that I don't get to read this right away, but it's coming out next year, and I can strongly recommend this author unless he makes a huge misstep with this book. It'll probably be terrific. So let's see what this next one is. Oh, this next one is 2 books. Here, let's put that aside. We have 2 books in this next one. So this is going to be a fairly sizable mail haul here. Okay, 2 thrillers, it looks like. First one is Katrine Engberg. This is The Harbor. Very nice, moody cover. You've got the beaded moisture there, and the lights have just come on at sunset in a desolate-looking area. Do I have anything here? Yes, I do. Okay. What have we got here? The pub sheet starts like so many of them do. It starts off with Dear Editor, Reviewer, or Producer. Gone are the days when this was just been sent to the book's editor or whatever. So this is another 2022. This comes out in late February of 2022. This is a propulsive, suspenseful story about a missing teenager and a deep undercurrent of secrets that threatens both his life and those close to him. When 15-year-old Oscar Dreyerhoff disappears, his wealthy, prominent family is frantic. The only clues are the boy's backpack, abandoned on a nearby boat dock with a peculiar note typed on an unsigned piece of paper. And what does the note say? He looked around and saw the knife that has stabbed Basil Hallward. He had cleared it many times till there was no stain left upon it. It was bright and glistened. As it had killed the painter, so would it kill the painter's work, and all that meant. It would kill the past, and when that was dead, he would be free. Oh, who would want to find a note like that at a crime scene? God, our cop's job's hard enough as it is. As inimitable detective duo Jeppy Corner and Annette Warner race against the clock to solve Oscar's disappearance and a spate of seemingly related deaths, Engberg, the author, explores the risks of protecting the most vulnerable among us and seeking against all odds to bring them home. Okay, well, I'm very much intrigued. I don't get to enjoy it because it doesn't come out this year. I'm not reading any new books. I'm not reading any 22 books in 2021. So this next one is also a thriller. It's got the advanced copy here is very nice embossed cover. Also of an aquatic nature. This is Girl in Ice by Erika Ferencik. Girl in Ice. You can't make out how nice this cover is, but this is also a 2022 release. Let's see here. Yeah, this comes out in March. What have we got here? The author spent weeks in the wilderness of northern Maine as research for her exhilarating 2017 debut, The River at Night, which I think we saw on this channel, didn't we? Now, inspired and informed by a month-long trip to Greenland in the summer of 2019, the author sets this book in the most unforgiving, unforgettable landscape yet. Successful yet sheltered linguist Val Chesterfield, struggling to understand the apparent suicide of her climate scientist brother Andy, ventures to a remote Arctic outpost to try to unravel the mystery of his final days and communicate with a young girl who has thawed from the ice inexplicably alive and speaking a language no one can decipher. Oh my God, that sounds fantastic. The conditions are fierce. Andy's research partner Wyatt is an enigma, and Val's fears threaten to overwhelm her. But the girl needs her, and the connection between the two is profound. Only something is terribly wrong. The child is sick, maybe dying, and the key to saving her, and perhaps learning how and why Andy died, lies in discovering the truth about Wyatt's jealously guarded research. It has to be connected to why the girl is alive in the first place. With time running out, Val embarks on an incredible frozen odyssey in a desperate attempt to save the new family she's found in the most unexpected of places. That sounds fantastic. That sounds fantastic. They both do. The Harbor and Girl in Ice, they both sound fantastic. Okay, so thrillers for the next year. But in the meantime, we'll finish up with this last package here. You can see, some of you, if you're not watching all of my videos today, you might not know why the beanie looks so pouty. It's because she had a trim. I trimmed her from head to toe. I told her, you're a big girl now. We're not going to do any of this. I'll do one part of you today and one part of you tomorrow. Just stand there while I trim all of you from tail to nose, and then it'll be done. And she did. She just stood there like an angel, but she didn't like it at all. Not at all. I know that is an improvement over what she used to do, which was to gently fight, pull away, even jerk away, so that I ran the risk of nipping her with the shears. But she doesn't do that anymore. She just stands there. She knows perfectly well I'm not going to hurt her. She just doesn't like it. So she's been pouting ever since. I gave her a treat. I took her on a long, exorbitant walk. Nothing does any good. She'll calm down eventually. So what is this? Oh, no. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, this next one is Founding Father history. This is probably an October release. I don't have a sheet for it, but it's probably an October release. This is by Bruce Ragsdale, whose name rings a big bell with me. Probably Peg at the History Shelf or Bill Rutenberg probably know right away. We'll figure it out. We'll look at his biography. This is Washington at the Plow, the Founding Father and the Question of Slavery. Washington the Farmer, Washington at the Plow. 10-1. The dust jacket copy infuriates me. Shall we see? Have a little more fun? George Washington spent more of his working life farming than he did at war or in political office. For over 40 years, he devoted himself to the improvement of agriculture, which he saw as the means by which the American people would attain, quote, respectability and importance, which we ought to hold in the world. Washington at the Plow depicts, quote, the first farmer of America as a leading practitioner of new husbandry, a transatlantic movement that spearheaded advancements in crop rotation. A tireless experimentalist, Washington pulled up his tobacco and switched them to wheat production, leading the way for the rest of the country. He filled his library with the latest agricultural treatises and pioneered land management techniques that he hoped would guide small farmers, strengthen agrarian society, and ensure the prosperity of the nation. Okay, there's a word that's missing from all of that. We'll read on and see if that word occurs. It's the very next word, slavery. Slavery was a key part of Washington's pursuits. He saw enslaved field workers and artisans as means of agricultural development and tried repeatedly to adapt slave labor to new kinds of farming. To this end, he devised an original and exacting system of slave supervision. But Washington eventually found that forced labor could not achieve the productivity he desired. His inability to reconcile ideals of scientific farming and rural order with race-based slavery led him to reconsider the traditional foundations of the Virginia plantation. As Bruce Ragsdale shows, it was the inefficacy of chattel slavery, as much as moral revulsion at the practice, that informed Washington's famous decision to free his slaves after his death. Who is Bruce Ragsdale when he's at home? All right, well, he takes a great cover photo, right? That's a likable face. But who is he here? He served for 20 years as director of the Federal Judicial History Office at the Federal Judicial Center. He's the author of A Planter's Republic, A Search for Economic Independence in Revolutionary Virginia. I read A Planter's Republic. I thought it was terrific. And he's been a fellow at the Washington Library, Mount Vernon, and International Center for Jefferson Studies. This is the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press. I don't have a date for it, but it'll be soon. This goes on the TBR tonight. This I will read tonight. I don't know. The second paragraph of that dust jacket copy saved the first paragraph. So I guess it will all. I don't require that a book on this particular subject, Washington's agrarian practices, I don't require that it attack him nonstop for what a brutal and vicious slave owner he was. But I don't want it not to be here. I don't need the book to be about that. But I don't want the book to pretend that didn't happen. Or worse yet, tell me that it didn't happen. So we shall see. It doesn't seem to me that Bruce Ragsdale will do that. I get a better impression than that from this. So we shall see. This, unlike other, quite a few, 3, 4 books that are 2022 releases, the most we've ever had in one mail haul, that just go on the 2022 pile. I won't even think about them. But the two 2021 releases, Klimat and Washington at the Plow, I think I'll both read tonight. So that's what we have for the mail this Saturday, this hot and humid Saturday. We have Washington at the Plow, Girl in Ice. A girl thaws out from the ice and is speaking a language that no one knows. And there just happens to be a linguist on the scene. Fantastic. And then Katrine Engberg's book, The Harbor, in which a missing boy's backpack has an unbelievably cryptic note on it. Then Devil House by John Darnielle. Might not be a fan of this guy's music, but his fiction can do no wrong. My God, if you haven't read Wolf in White Van, find it from your library or your used bookstore. You're going to love it. You're absolutely going to love it, and you'll be done with it in 2 days. Then we have Klimat by Thane Gustafsson, about the challenges, the good and bad, that face Russia as catastrophic climate change increases, as the pace of it increases. So these two are new releases, both from Harvard. Probably I can read them both tonight. And then we have Bibliolepsy, Gina Apostol's debut, now getting its first widespread publication outside the Philippines, about a book disorder that maybe some of you have experienced. but 3 of these things are 2022 releases, so they don't affect my reading schedule in the short term at all. But there you go. There's some Saturday mail. If there's more mail, if mail comes later tonight, I'll save it and do it tomorrow. But otherwise, I will wrap this all up, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.